Okay, so being married to Luca De Luca was like starring in a gangster movie, except without the cool car chases and witty one-liners. It was more like endless fancy dinners, strained smiles, and a constant fear that someone might sleep with the fishes, which, let's be honest, wasn't exactly a relaxing bedtime story. I was Arya, the devoted wife, the silent shadow, the one who always stood by Luca's side, no matter how shady the deal or how bloody the aftermath. I'd mastered the art of the demure smile, the polite nod, the perfectly timed darling, that kept the gossiping wives at bay and the suspicious underlings in line. "Arya, my love," Luca would say, his voice a gravelly rumble that sent shivers down my spine, not always in a good way. "You're the rock of this family, the one person I can always count on." And I'd handle the household, the finances, even the occasional discreet errand that involved dropping off unmarked packages or making veiled threats to uncooperative associates. I was loyal, efficient, the perfect mafia wife, or at least that's what everyone thought. Inside, though, it was a different story. My heart was a hollow echo chamber, my soul a withered vine clinging to a crumbling wall. Luca, with his steely gaze and icy touch, was more of a business partner than a husband. He saw my devotion as a tool, my loyalty as a weapon, my love was irrelevant. "You understand, Arya," he'd say, his eyes fixed on some distant point in the dimly lit study. "In this world, emotions are a weakness. Love is a liability." And I'd nod, my throat tight, my smile brittle. I understood, or at least I pretended to, because what choice did I have? To question Luca, to challenge his authority, to demand the love and affection I craved? Well, that was a gamble I couldn't afford to take. So I played the part. The dutiful wife, the silent partner, the ghost in my own marriage. I attended the endless galas, the lavish parties, the obligatory gatherings where I'd plaster a smile on my face and pretend to be interested in the latest gossip about who'd been made and who'd been taken care of. "Arya, darling." The other wives would coo, their eyes filled with a mixture of envy and pity. "You're so lucky. Luca is so powerful, so respected. You have everything a woman could ever want." And I'd smile, my lips forming the words, "Yes, I'm very lucky." But inside I was screaming, my soul withering, my heart breaking into a million pieces, because in Luca's world, love meant nothing, and in my world it meant everything. Okay, so the night of the dinner party was like something out of a bad soap opera, except with way more diamonds and significantly higher stakes. Our mansion was buzzing, a who's who of the underworld mingling with politicians, businessmen, and the occasional socialite who'd clearly taken a wrong turn on the way to the opera. I was gliding through the crowd, playing the perfect hostess, my smile plastered on so tight I could practically feel the Botox kicking in. Luca, of course, was the center of attention, his booming voice. Laughter echoed through the room, his hand resting possessively on the back of her. Isabella, Luca's ex, the one who got away, the one he'd apparently never gotten over. She was everything I wasn't. Flamboyant, dramatic, a walking talking headline in a crimson dress that screamed, "Look at me." And Luca was looking. He couldn't take his eyes off her. He was whispering in her ear, laughing at her jokes, even feeding her bites of his pasta, which, let's be honest, was a major breach of mafia etiquette. You never share food with someone you might have to whack later. I felt a knot tightening in my stomach, a burning sensation spreading through my veins. It wasn't jealousy, not exactly. It was more like indignation, fury. The kind of rage that simmers beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to erupt. "Arya, darling," one of the wives gushed, her eyes glued to Luca and Isabella. "Your husband seems to be enjoying himself. You must be so proud." I forced a smile, my voice a strained whisper. "Yes, he seems to be in good spirits. Isabella is quite the charmer, isn't she?" Another wife chimed in, her tone laced with a hint of malice. Such a shame things didn't work out between them. I gritted my teeth, my nails digging into the palm of my hand. "Yes, a shame," I echoed, my voice dripping with sarcasm. The evening wore on, each passing hour a fresh layer of humiliation. Luca, oblivious to my simmering rage, continued his public display of affection for Isabella, ignoring me completely. I was a ghost in my own home, a shadow in my own marriage, invisible to the man who'd vowed to cherish and protect me, or at least that's what I'd assumed till death do us part meant. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, I excused myself, escaping to the sanctuary of my bedroom. I locked the door, the heavy click echoing the finality of my decision. I was done with the charade, the humiliation, the endless parade of empty gestures and meaningless words. I paced the room, my anger a caged animal clawing at the bars of my restraint. I wanted to scream, to break things, to unleash the fury that had been simmering for years. But I didn't. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I wouldn't let them see me break. Instead, I sat down at my vanity table, the cool glass reflecting my own defiant gaze. I stared at my reflection, the woman I'd become. The silent wife, the neglected partner, the ghost in the gilded cage. And I knew with a certainty that went beyond logic or reason, that it was time to break free. Luca de Luca, I whispered, my voice a low growl. You may have forgotten what it means to love, but I haven't. And I'll be damned if I spend another day wasting my love on a man who doesn't deserve it. I stood up, my shoulders squared, my eyes blazing with newfound determination. I wouldn't be a victim. I wouldn't be a ghost. I would be the architect of my own destiny, the master of my own fate. And as I walked towards the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance, I knew that this was the first step towards a new life. A life of freedom. Freedom, independence, and maybe just maybe a love that was real, a love that was true, a love that was worthy of me. Okay, so walking out on a mafia boss isn't exactly like ditching a bad date. It's not a matter of faking a phone call and sneaking out the bathroom window. This was Luca Duca, a man who could make people disappear with a snap of his fingers, a man who considered betrayal a capital offense. But you know what? Screw it. I was done. The decision to leave wasn't impulsive. It had been brewing for years, simmering beneath the surface like a volcano waiting to erupt. That night, with Luca practically drooling over Isabella, the volcano finally blew. I spent the next few days planning my escape with the precision of a military strategist. I knew Luca had eyes everywhere, his mansion wired with security cameras, his guards patrolling the grounds like attack dogs. But I also knew the routines, the blind spots, the weaknesses in his fortress. I started small, stashing away cash, jewelry, anything I could easily convert to funds once I was out. Then came the trickier part. Establishing a new identity. Fake passport, driver's license, even a social security number, all acquired through channels I discreetly cultivated over the years, connections that Luca, in his arrogance, had dismissed as women's gossip. Maria, darling, I'd purred to the wife of a notorious forger. You wouldn't happen to know anyone who could procure certain documents, would you? She giggled, her eyes twinkling. Arya, sweetie, you're so naughty. But of course, darling, anything for a friend in need. The night of the escape was like something out of a spy movie. I waited until the mansion was quiet, the guards lulled into a false sense of security by the late hour and the lingering aroma of expensive wine. I slipped out of bed, my heart pounding in my chest, my adrenaline surging through my veins. I crept through the darkened hallways, avoiding the creaky floorboards and the strategically placed security cameras. I reached the back door, the one leading to the gardens, the one Luca rarely used. I'd subtly sabotaged the lock earlier that day, a little trick I'd learned from a locksmith's wife who owed me a favor. The cool night air hit me like a slap, the scent of jasmine and freedom filling my lungs. I moved quickly, my footsteps silent on the manicured lawn. I reached the perimeter wall, the imposing barrier that had kept me captive for so long. But I was prepared. A rope ladder, acquired from a disgruntled gardener with a gambling problem, was stashed in the bushes. I scaled the wall, my hands shaking, my breath catching in my throat. I reached the top, the world stretching out before me, a vast expanse of possibilities and unknowns. I took a deep breath, savoring the taste of freedom, the thrill of escape, the knowledge that I was finally in control of my own destiny. And then I jumped. The landing was rough, my ankle twisting beneath me, a sharp pain shooting up my leg. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. I limped towards the waiting car, a Nandi. A sedan was driven by a woman I'd met through a network of, let's just say, discreet associates. Arya, she asked, her voice low, her eyes scanning the surroundings. Get me out of here. I gasped, my voice a strained whisper. She nodded, her foot hitting the gas pedal. The car speeding away into the night, leaving behind the mansion, the gilded cage, the life I'd once known. As I looked back at the receding lights, a single tear rolled down my cheek, a tear not of sadness or regret, but of liberation, of defiance, of the unwavering belief that I was finally free. Okay, so vanishing into thin air isn't as easy as it sounds, especially when your husband is a guy who basically has Google Maps for the underworld. I knew Luca would be looking for me, his goons scouring every back alley and dive bar, his informants whispering my name in every dark corner. But I was ready. I'd been preparing for this moment for years, building a network of allies, a safety net woven from favors, secrets, and the kind of loyalty that money couldn't buy. My first stop was a safe house, a nondescript apartment in a quiet neighborhood, miles away from the glitz and glamour of Luca's world. It was bare bones, but it was safe. A temporary haven where I could catch my breath and plan my next move. "Welcome to your new life, Arya," my driver Elena said with a smile. Or should I say Gianna? Gianna, my new identity, a fresh start, a clean slate, a chance to be whoever I wanted to be. No more Mrs. Luca, the mafia wife, the silent shadow. This was Gianna, the independent woman, the one who called the shots, the one who wouldn't be defined by her past or her husband's reputation. The first few weeks were a blur of logistics and paranoia. New phone, new bank accounts, new routines designed to keep me off the grid and out of Luca's reach. I dyed my hair, changed my style, even adopted a slight accent just to throw off any potential pursuers. "You know," Elena said one day, watching me practice my fake Italian accent in the mirror, "you're starting to sound like a character from The Godfather." I laughed, the sound a little shaky, a little uncertain. Well, I've had a pretty good teacher, haven't I? But it wasn't all about hiding, it was also about building. I reached out to my network, the women I'd befriended, the favors I'd collected, the alliances I'd forged in the shadows of Luca's empire. They were my lifeline, my support system, the ones who believed in me even when I doubted myself. "Arya, I mean Gianna," one of them said, her voice filled with concern. "Are you sure about this? Luca's not someone you want to cross." "I know," I said, my voice firm, "but I'm not afraid of him anymore. I'm not his wife. I'm not his property. I'm my own woman." And I was. With their help, I started building a new life, a new identity, a new empire. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, close calls, moments when I thought Luca was closing in. But I persevered, driven by a fierce determination to prove him wrong, to show him that I was more than just a trophy wife, a silent shadow. Now I was Arya, and I was unstoppable. Shedding the mafia wife persona was like ditching a pair of uncomfortable stilettos. Good riddance. It was time for a makeover, a glow-up, a total transformation inside and out. First, the physical stuff. I ditched the manicures and the designer dresses, though I kept a few because, let's be honest, a girl's got to have options. I started training, not just yoga and Pilates, but hardcore self-defense and weapons handling. The kind of stuff that would make those muscle-bound goons think twice before messing with me. "Whoa," Gianna Elena said one day, watching me dismantle a handgun with the speed and precision of a seasoned hitman. "Where did you learn to do that?" I grinned, flexing my newly toned biceps. "A lady never reveals her secrets, darling, but let's just say I've been paying attention all these years." Next, the mental game. I devoured books on strategy, psychology, even economics. Turns out, running a criminal empire isn't that different from running a Fortune 500 company, except with more persuasion. I learned to read people, to anticipate their moves, to exploit their weaknesses. "You know," I said to Elena one evening, analyzing a rival gang's latest moves on a giant whiteboard, "Luca always underestimated me. He thought I was just a pretty face, a trophy wife. He never realized I was absorbing everything, learning, strategizing." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Well, he's about to learn his lesson, isn't he?" Oh, he was. But it wasn't just about revenge. It was about proving to myself, to the world, that I was more than just Luca Duca's ex-wife. I was Arya, and I was capable of anything. I started small, building my own network, recruiting loyal followers who were tired of Luca's iron fist and eager for a change. I offered them something different. Respect, fairness, a chance to be part of something bigger than themselves. "We're not just building a syndicate, guys," I'd say, my voice filled with passion. "We're building a family where loyalty is rewarded, where everyone has a voice, where we all rise together." And they believed me. They saw the fire in my eyes, the determination in my voice, the strength that had been forged in the fires of betrayal and adversity. They saw the leader I was becoming, the woman who would take down Luca Duca and build a new empire. An empire built on trust, respect, and the unwavering belief that even in the darkest corners of the world, there was still room for hope, for change, for a better future. The transformation was complete. The timid wife, the silent shadow, was gone. In her place stood Arya, the strategist, the leader, the woman who would rewrite the rules of the game and claim her rightful place at the top. And as I looked at my reflection, my eyes blazing with confidence, my heart filled with newfound power, I knew that Luka Duka had made a grave mistake. He'd underestimated me, and he was about to pay the price. Okay, so building a criminal empire from scratch is a bit like starting a business, except your investors might be carrying guns and your board meetings could get a little messy. Luckily, I wasn't starting from zero. Years of playing the dutiful mafia wife had given me a unique advantage. Access. I knew the players, the power dynamics, the hidden cracks in Luka's seemingly impenetrable fortress. I started by reaching out to the disenfranchised, the ones Luka had overlooked, underestimated, or simply pissed off. There was Marco, the brilliant hacker who'd been passed over for promotion because he lacked the proper social skills. Translation. He wasn't a fan of kissing Luka's ass. There was Sophia, the ruthless smuggler with a network that spanned continents, but who was tired of Luka taking the lion's share of the profits. And there was even a disgruntled accountant, a guy named Benny, who knew where all the bodies were buried, literally and figuratively. Donna, Marco said, his eyes widening when I laid out my plan. You're serious? You want to take down Luka? That's ambitious. Ambitious is my middle name, darling, I said with a smirk. Besides, someone has to do it. The guy's a dinosaur. He's stuck in the old ways, relying on brute force and intimidation. It's time for a new era. A smarter, more strategic approach. Sophia, ever the pragmatist, raised an eyebrow. And what's in it for us? A bigger slice of the pie, I said, my voice firm. Loyalty, respect, and a chance to be part of something bigger than yourselves. Luka treats you like pawns. I see you as partners. Benny, the accountant, nervously adjusted his glasses. But what if he finds out? He'll kill us all. He won't, I said, my voice laced with steel. Because we're going to be smarter, faster, more ruthless than he ever imagined. We're going to hit him where it hurts, his finances, his supply chains, his reputation. We're going to dismantle his empire piece by piece until he's left with nothing. And they were in. They saw the opportunity, the potential, the chance to break free from Luka's tyranny and build something better. We met in secret, in abandoned warehouses and in the back rooms of shady bars. Our plans whispered in hushed tones, our strategies drawn on napkins and scraps of paper. I leveraged every connection, every favor, every secret I'd gathered over the years. I turned Luka's own network against him, exploiting the resentment, the greed, the simmering discontent that had been brewing beneath the surface of his iron-fisted rule. Remember that shipment Luka intercepted last month? I'd ask a disgruntled lieutenant, the one he claimed was lost at sea. He'd nod, his eyes narrowing. Yeah, what about it? It wasn't lost, I'd say, my voice a conspiratorial whisper. It's stashed in a warehouse down by the docks, and I know the code to the vault. He'd lick his lips, greed and revenge battling in his eyes. And what do you want in return? Loyalty, I'd say, my voice firm, and a share of the profits, of course. He'd grin, a predatory gleam in his eyes. You've got yourself a deal, Gianna. And so it went, deal after deal, alliance after alliance, until I had woven a web of influence that spanned the city, a network of loyal followers who were ready to strike to dismantle Luka's empire and usher in a new era. As I looked at the map of the city, the red pins marking our growing territory, I couldn't help but smile. Luka Duka, the man who thought he could control everything, was about to learn a valuable lesson. You can't control people with fear forever. Sooner or later they rise up, and when they do, the empire falls. Okay, so revenge is a dish best served with a side of strategic brilliance, wouldn't you agree? I wasn't just going to waltz into Luka's office and demand a heartfelt apology, though that would have been fun. No, this was about dismantling his empire brick by bloody brick and building something better in its place. I spread out the city map on the table, the network of red pins looking like a constellation of rebellion. All right, people, I said, my voice crisp and commanding. Let's talk strategy. Marco, the hacker, tapped away at his laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard. I've infiltrated their security systems. Luca's got more firewalls than Fort Knox, but I found a back door. We can access their financial records, communication logs, even their surveillance feeds. Excellent, I said, nodding. Sophia, what about the supply chains? Luca's got his fingers in everything. Drugs, weapons, even those knockoff designer handbags. Sophia smirked, her eyes gleaming with mischief. Don't worry, Gianna. I've already rerouted a few shipments. He's going to be wondering why his Colombian contacts are suddenly sending him shipments of bananas instead of cocaine. Benny, the accountant, nervously adjusted his glasses. And what about, the less legal stuff? Luca's got a lot of enemies. They'll be circling like sharks smelling blood. Let them, I said, my voice cold. We'll use their thirst for revenge to our advantage. We'll leak information, stir up trouble. Let them weaken Luca while we stay in the shadows, picking up the pieces. My plan was simple yet devastatingly effective. We'd hit Luca from all angles, disrupt his finances, his operations, and turn his own allies against him. We'd expose his corruption, his brutality, his hypocrisy until his empire crumbled under the weight of its own sins. This isn't just about revenge, guys, I said, my voice filled with passion. It's about justice. It's about freedom. It's about building a world where people like us don't have to live in fear, where loyalty is rewarded, where everyone has a chance to succeed. They nodded, their eyes shining with a mixture of admiration and determination. They believed in me, in my vision, in the possibility of a better future. And as I looked at them, my team, my family, my fellow rebels, I knew that we were more than just a syndicate. We were a force for change, a beacon of hope in the darkness. Together we would bring down Luca Duca and create a new world order, one where the rules were fair, the playing field was level, and the only currency that mattered was loyalty, trust, and the unwavering spirit of rebellion, verifying belief in a brighter tomorrow. Okay, so launching a hostile takeover in the criminal underworld isn't exactly like sending a strongly worded email. It requires a bit more finesse. Our first move was a masterpiece of subtle sabotage, a whisper campaign designed to sow doubt and paranoia in Luca's ranks. Marco, our resident tech wizard, worked his magic, planting rumors, leaking documents, and subtly manipulating information on Luca's own servers. He's going to be seeing ghosts in his spreadsheets, Marco said with a mischievous grin. Suspicious transactions, missing funds, even his mistress's exorbitant spending. It'll all be there, staring him in the face. Sophia, meanwhile, was busy disrupting Luca's supply chains. Shipments went missing, deliveries were delayed, and his carefully cultivated network of suppliers suddenly became unreliable. He's used to getting what he wants when he wants it, Sophia said with a smirk. Let's see how he handles a little inconvenience. Benny, our inside man, subtly altered financial records, creating discrepancies, raising red flags, and generally making Luca's life a bureaucratic nightmare. Audits, investigations, tax inquiries, he's going to be drowning in paperwork, Benny said with a nervous chuckle. The impact was immediate and devastating. Luca's organization, once a well-oiled machine, started to sputter and stall. Deals fell through, profits plummeted, and his underlings, sensing weakness, started to question his leadership. Boss, one of his lieutenants said, his voice laced with concern, we've got a problem. The shipment from Colombia. It never arrived. Luca slammed his fist on the table, his face contorted with rage. What do you mean it never arrived? I paid those bastards a fortune. I don't know, boss, the lieutenant stammered. They're saying there were complications, some kind of customs issue. Luca paced the room, his anger simmering. Customs issue? Someone's playing games. Someone's trying to undermine me. He glared at his underlings, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. Find out who's behind this, and when you do, make them pay. But his threats were empty, his power waning. He was a lion surrounded by hyenas, his once loyal followers now sensing the scent of blood, their eyes gleaming with a mixture of fear and ambition. And as I watched the chaos unfold from the shadows, a smile crept across my face. The first strike had been a success. Luca de Luca was crumbling, his empire teetering on the brink of collapse. And I, Arya, the woman he discarded, the ghost he tried to erase, was the one pulling the strings, orchestrating his downfall, building a new world order from the ashes of his defeat. Okay, so Luca wasn't exactly known for his patience. The guy was used to getting what he wanted when he wanted it, whether it was a rare vintage wine or a rival's territory. So you can imagine his reaction when his perfectly ordered world started to fall apart like a cheap suit in a rainstorm. He paced his office, the expensive Persian rug worn thin by his restless strides. "Who the hell is behind this?" he roared, his voice echoing through the room. "Who dares to challenge Luka?" His lieutenants, their faces pale with fear, shuffled their feet and avoided his gaze. They'd been scrambling for weeks trying to plug the leaks in his empire. But the problems kept multiplying like hydra heads sprouting after each decapitation. "We don't know, boss," one of them stammered. "They're like ghosts. They strike from the shadows, leaving no trace." Luka slammed his fist on the mahogany desk, the expensive vase teetering precariously. "Ghosts? Don't give me that crap. Find them. I want names, faces, addresses. I want to know who's responsible for this." But his rage was met with silence. His informants, once eager to whisper secrets in his ear, were now tight-lipped, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and uncertainty. The whispers in the underworld were of a new power, a shadowy organization that was dismantling Luka's empire with ruthless efficiency. But no one knew who was leading it, who was pulling the strings, who was the mastermind behind this audacious rebellion. Luka's paranoia grew with each passing day. He saw enemies everywhere, his trust in his own men eroding like sandcastles in a rising tide. He became isolated, withdrawn, his once booming laughter replaced by a brooding silence that chilled even his most loyal followers. "Boss," his conciliar, a wizened old man named S, said one day, his voice cautious, "you need to calm down. This obsession with finding the leader of this new syndicate is consuming you." Luka glared at him, his eyes blazing with a dangerous fire. "Consuming me? They're destroying everything I've built, everything I've worked for." "But you're losing yourself in the process," S said, his voice firm. "You're making mistakes, alienating your allies, pushing away the people who care about you." Luka scoffed, his voice laced with bitterness. "Care about me? No one cares about me. They only care about what I can give them, what I can do for them." "That's not true," S said, his voice gentle. "There are people who care about you, Luka. People who want to help you." But Luka wouldn't listen. He was trapped in his own web of paranoia and suspicion, his fear blinding him to the truth, his anger pushing away the very people who could have saved him. And as his empire crumbled around him, his power slipping through his fingers like grains of sand, he became a shadow of his former self, a haunted figure consumed by his own demons. He was a king without a kingdom, a lion without a pride, a man who had once ruled the underworld now reduced to a pawn in a game he no longer understood. Meanwhile, Arya, the ghost he tried to erase, the woman he underestimated, watched from the shadows, my smile widening with each passing day. I was the invisible hand guiding the rebellion, the whisper in the wind that sowed doubt and chaos, the shadow that haunted his every move. He was searching for a leader, a face, a name, but he wouldn't find me because I was everywhere. A phantom, a myth, a force he could neither control nor defeat. As his empire crumbled, his power waned and his fear grew. I knew that my time was coming, the time for the final confrontation, the time for the reckoning, the time for Arya, the ghost, to rise from the ashes and claim her rightful place at the top. Walking back into Luka's office after all this time was surreal, like stepping onto a movie set. Except the props were real guns. The tension was thicker than a bowl of risotto, and the leading man looked like he'd aged a decade in a matter of months. Luka sat behind his massive desk, his face etched with lines of stress and fatigue, his eyes burning with a mixture of anger and desperation. He looked smaller somehow, his aura of invincibility replaced by a palpable vulnerability. "Who are you?" he growled, his voice raspy, his hand hovering near the gun tucked into his waistband. "What do you want?" I leaned against the door frame, my arms crossed, a smirk playing on my lips. "Don't you recognize me, Luka?" I asked, my voice smooth as silk, my eyes gleaming with a hint of amusement. He squinted, his brow furrowed in confusion. I don't." I stepped into the light, letting the transformation reveal itself. The new haircut, the confident posture, the aura of power that radiated from me like heat from a furnace. Then I smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that sent a shiver down his spine. "Arya," he gasped, his eyes widening in disbelief. But you're dead." I finished, my voice laced with a hint of mockery. Disappeared, vanished into thin air. Yes, I know that's what you wanted everyone to believe, isn't it? He stumbled to his feet, his chair clattering to the floor. Arya, what is this? What are you doing here? I'm here to collect Luca, I said, my voice hardening. To collect on all the debts you owe me, the years of neglect, the humiliation, the love you denied me. He sputtered, his face flushing with anger. Debts? Love? You were my wife. I gave you everything. Everything but what I truly wanted, I said, my voice rising. You gave me a gilded cage, Luca. A life of luxury and privilege, but also a life of loneliness and isolation. You gave me your name, but you never gave me your heart. He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. Don't bother with the excuses, Luca. I've heard them all before. You're a man who understands power, control, dominance, but you don't understand love. You never did. I stepped closer, my eyes locking with his, the power dynamic shifting with every stride. I loved you, Luca. I truly did, but you threw my love away like it was nothing. You humiliated me, betrayed me, discarded me like a broken toy. His anger gave way to a flicker of shame, a hint of regret in his eyes. Arya, No, Luca, I said, my voice firm. No more excuses. It's time for you to face the consequences of your actions. It's time for you to pay. I gestured towards the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance. Look at what I've built, Luca. Look at the empire I created, an empire built on loyalty, trust, and the very things you despise. Compassion, empathy, love. He turned towards the window, his eyes widening in realization. The city was ablaze with activity, his territory now marked by a new symbol. A phoenix rising from the ashes of his defeat. He saw the trucks bearing my insignia, the businesses flying my flag, the people who once swore allegiance to him now pledging their loyalty to me. He sank back into his chair, his shoulders slumped, his face etched with defeat. It's over, isn't it? He whispered, his voice barely audible. It is, I said, my voice soft but firm. Your reign is over, Luca. The era of Arya has begun. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of awe and resignation. You've become a force to be reckoned with, Arya, he said, his voice laced with grudging respect. I have, I said, my smile widening. And it's all thanks to you, Luca. You taught me everything I know. You showed me how to build an empire, and now I'm using that knowledge to build a better one. A world where love isn't a weakness but a strength. A world where loyalty is rewarded, not exploited. A world where everyone has a chance to succeed, not just the ones who are willing to step on others to get to the top. He nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on mine, a flicker of understanding in their depths. I underestimated you, Arya, he said, his voice filled with regret. I never saw your true potential. I never realized what I was throwing away. It's too late for regrets, Luca, I said, my voice gentle. But you can still choose how you face your defeat. You can fight, cling to the remnants of your power, and be destroyed. Or you can accept your fate, step aside, and let a new era begin. He was silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the floor, his mind wrestling with the choices before him. And then finally he looked up, his eyes meeting mine, a flicker of acceptance in their depths. I yield, Arya, he said, his voice hoarse but firm. You've won. Okay, so Luca's surrender wasn't the end. It was more like the beginning of the end. Taking down a criminal empire is like untangling a giant ball of yarn. Messy, complicated, and you're bound to encounter a few knots along the way. But I was ready. I had the plan, the team, and the unwavering determination to see it through. All right, people, I said, gathered with my inner circle in our sleek modern headquarters, a far cry from the dingy warehouses we used to meet in. Operation Clean Sweep is a go. Marco, ever the tech whiz, grinned. I've uploaded the evidence to every news outlet, law enforcement agency, and anonymous tip line I could find. Luca's dirty laundry is about to become public knowledge. Sophia, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of satisfaction and anticipation, nodded. The docks are secured. Luca's shipments are now under our control. We're talking drugs, weapons, cash, the whole shebang. Benny, bless his meticulous heart, adjusted his glasses. The financial records have been scrubbed clean. Luca's offshore accounts are frozen, his assets seized. He's officially broke. Excellent, I said. Crisp and commanding. Now let's talk about the loose ends. We spent the next few days systematically dismantling what remained of Lucas's empire. We targeted his lieutenants, his businesses, his properties, seizing everything, exposing everyone, leaving no stone unturned. It wasn't just about taking revenge. It was about cleaning up the mess he'd created, bringing a semblance of justice to the victims of his crimes, and ensuring that no one else would suffer the way I had. Gianna, Elena said one evening, watching the news reports of Luca's downfall flashing across the screen. You did it. You actually did it. I smiled, a genuine smile that reached my eyes. We did it, Elena, I corrected. We did it together. And we had. It wasn't just me. It was the team, the network, the community of rebels who had dared to dream of a better future. We had worked together, fought together, and now we were reaping the rewards together. Luca's arrest was a media circus. He was paraded in front of the cameras, his face a mask of defeat and humiliation, his once imposing figure now slumped and broken. He was stripped of his power, his wealth, his reputation, reduced to a common criminal, a shadow of the man he once was. I watched it all unfold from my office, a sense of closure washing over me. It wasn't the satisfaction of revenge, not exactly. It was more like relief. The weight of the past, the burden of the pain was finally lifted. You know, I said to myself, a soft smile playing on my lips, I'm free. And I was free from Luca's control, free from the ghosts of my past, free to build a new life, a new future on my own terms. I didn't take over Luca's empire. I didn't want it. I used the resources, the connections, the influence I'd gained to build something different, something better. I invested in communities, supported charities, and created opportunities for people who had been marginalized and forgotten. Gianna, Marco said one day, watching me sign checks for a local community center, "You're not exactly what I pictured a crime boss to be." I laughed, a genuine carefree laugh. Well, maybe it's time for a new image, I said. And it was. I was no longer Arya, the mafia wife, the silent shadow. I was Gianna, the businesswoman, the philanthropist, the leader. I was a force for change, a beacon of hope, a symbol of resilience and strength. And I was finally truly happy. I found love again, not with a powerful crime boss, but with a kind, gentle man who saw me for who I was, not what I represented. We built a life together. A life filled with laughter, love, and the kind of genuine connection I had never known with Luca. And as I looked at my reflection, my eyes shining with happiness, my heart filled with peace, I knew that I had won. Not just against Luca, but against the odds, against the pain, against the darkness that had once threatened to consume me. I had reclaimed my life, my identity, my happiness. And that, my friends, is the ultimate triumph.